Mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to CHRA's webinar, Affordable Homeownership Partnerships with Habitat for Humanity Canada. I'm Kristen Holinsky, Program Manager here at CHRA, and I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar. Today's webinar has been generously sponsored by Habitat for Humanity Canada, allowing us to open the presentation to all of you here today. So a huge thank you to Habitat for Humanity Canada for your support. We greatly appreciate it. Before we begin, I will give you a brief overview of the webinar technology we'll be using today. I'll then introduce our agenda and speakers for this afternoon's presentation. Today's webinar is in real time. You should now be able to see a title screen of today's presentation and be able to hear me via your computer speakers, headset, or through your telephone if you've chosen to dial in. First, I want to let you know that you're all muted, and we do this to minimize background noise. So if you wish to ask a question during the Q&A portion of the webinar, you have two options available to you. You can either type a question into the dialog box on the webinar control panel at any time during the presentation, or you can ask a question verbally, and you can do this by clicking on the hand symbol on your control panel if you dialed in through your telephone or if you're using the microphone on your computer. If you wish to ask a question verbally, I'll call on you, unmute your line, and prompt you to ask your question directly to the presenters. And you are absolutely open to do this, and we encourage you to ask questions verbally, but of course the dialog box is also open to you. If at any point you're having problems with the technology, please call Vicky Coulombe-Joyce here at the office. Her contact information is 613-594-3007, extension 19, and I'll put that up in the chat box at the bottom of the control panel later in the webinar as well. Moving on to the agenda for today, we have a very exciting lineup of presenters on the webinar with us. We have Terry Petco, National Director, Safety and Building Programs, Habitat for Humanity Canada. He's on the line along with Megan McDonald, Executive Director, Habitat for Humanity Northumberland, and Alfred Nicolai, President and CEO, Habitat for Humanity Edmonton. Thank you all for being here with us today. We really have a coast-to-coast representation here all across Canada. So our presenters will speak for about 15 minutes each, and we're going to open up a Q&A chat session at the end addressed to all our presenters. So we hope you stay on the line with us and have a good conversation with us about the issues we're going to be raising today. So today's webinar, as you well know, features Habitat for Humanity Canada, along with two regional Habitat affiliates. And they're joining us to discuss partnership opportunities between nonprofit housing providers, pre- and post-expiry of social housing operating agreements to transition families into affordable home ownership. We'll hear from Habitat for Humanity Northumberland, who'll discuss the land transfer and rehabilitation strategies used to turn a former military housing base into affordable homes for 33 low-income families. And Habitat for Humanity Edmonton will speak to a partnership to transition 5 former rental properties post-expiry of federal operating subsidies into home ownership dwellings for Métis families through Habitat's unique Aboriginal housing program. So I'm now very pleased to introduce our first speaker. It's Terry Petco, National Director, Safety and Building Programs with Habitat for Humanity Canada. Terry joined Habitat in 1999 to provide technical and project management expertise to Habitat affiliate home builders. And while recently, Terry has dedicated his time to developing a robust safety program throughout the Habitat Federation, along with a focus on fostering partnerships with social housing sector to advance affordable home ownership in the broader affordable housing continuum. Terry has a passion for helping people help themselves and served as a volunteer with Habitat for Humanity Winnipeg for almost 10 years before joining the national team. Prior to joining Habitat for Humanity Canada, Terry spent 14 years in technical resource and program delivery with Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation in Winnipeg. So welcome, Terry, and over to you.
Thanks so much, Kristen. I really appreciate the opportunity here to give a bit of an introduction to the work of Habitat for Humanity. I suspect that the majority of people on the call know a bit about Habitat for Humanity, but I wanted to start out by providing a bit of an introduction to the organization from its founding, and then maybe get into a little more of the details in terms of how Habitat for Humanity has been successful to date. And then at that point, I'd like to pass things on to my colleagues who will give some in-depth information based on the two projects that you've already introduced, Kristen. So thanks very much for this opportunity again. And I'm going to just move into the first, as well, in fact, when my computer starts agreeing with me here. There we go. Okay. So just give a bit of background, first of all, in terms of the roots of our organization. Habitat for Humanity started in the United States, actually, back in 1976, it was established by Millard and Linda Fuller, along with a mentor of Millard's, Dr. Clarence Jordan. And this was in a Christian commune community at Koinonia Farm, and which is near Plains, Georgia, which is actually where President Carter and his family continue to live. And this is while the town, Americus, Georgia, is not too far from there, is where Habitat for Humanity was originally established, but the headquarters has moved to Atlanta, and they still maintain a satellite office down there. So the roots have come from and have grown out of the state of Georgia, and there's been some interesting influence all of the years to date. But at the same time, each of the national organizations of Habitat for Humanity have their own distinct identity for sure. Habitat for Humanity Canada was established in 1988, but our first homes actually were built in Winkler, Manitoba in 1985. The national office is currently located in Toronto, and we have a satellite office in Waterloo maintained to this day. Well, these are actually 2014 figures. In 2014, we actually involved up to 63,000 volunteers across the country in the 56 affiliate operations that are working very hard to provide affordable home ownership solutions across the country. And we're established in all 3 territories. And so there's very few communities that are not actually touched by the work of Habitat for Humanity. We also have a restore program that has been impressively successful and started in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And to date, we have over 94 restores across the country, which provide revenue to the operation of our organization. The mission and vision of Habitat for Humanity, and the vision which probably many organizations could align with, in a world where everyone has a safe and decent place to live. Our mission is very much more specific to the type of work that we do, to mobilize volunteers and community partners in building affordable housing and promoting affordable home ownership as a means of breaking the cycle of poverty. That's something that we've held for many years as far as the mission statement of ours. We do have also a number of values, and there's a lot more detail to these specific values that you could find on our website, but it's part of our philosophy that we provide housing for all, that all are considered in terms of the need for proper shelter, and that we consider human dignity, and that we work, and our strength is through partnerships. And our success comes through that. And today's workshop, or today's presentations, are going to be very much in line with those the thinking of partnerships. Faith in action is very much part of what we have held to from day one. And at the same time, diversity and inclusiveness has been something that we've held strongly to and continue to across the country in all of our operations. In 2013, in fact 2014, we reached out to Boston Consulting Group, and they provided us with a good amount of research to produce a study that provided some interesting information around social return on investment. And here's just a few points that came out of that study, that every $1 that is spent in providing affordable home ownership solutions in the work of Habitat in Canada has resulted in $4 in benefit to society. And this translates into approximately $175,000 per family, which looking at 2014, the 221 families that we served that year would result in $39 million in contribution to society. So it's an interesting and positive result in terms of the work that we're doing. Prior to that, in that study, the CMHC did a study for us, and we were trying to determine in terms of the real impact of the work of Habitat for Humanity on families. And the results of this survey were very encouraging in that 89% of families' lives, the families that did participate in the survey, they indicated that their lives had improved, and that 78% looked at their health and the family's situation as better now than it had been previously. And then also very positive, 31% reported frequent or less frequent visits to the doctor. And so the opportunity to live in a safe and decent home that they are caring for, and that it met their needs, and it addressed a lot of the overcrowding and other unhealthy situations they previously lived in, resulted in some very positive things. So moving on, just a few principles that we have followed, and I'm going to expand on this, and I'm sure my colleagues, both Megan and Alfred, will do the same based on their local operations and the work that they're doing. That ultimately we are all about safe, decent, and affordable housing. That's our focus. We do have a very specific selection criteria that we follow, and we're committed to one of the very important pieces, that sweat equity is a part of the contribution that the families that we partner with aspire to, and that we hold to a no-interest mortgage. This is something that has been very successful from the first Habitat for Humanity home that was built, and continues to be a big part of our strength and success. Selection process that families go through are fairly straightforward, that the need for decent affordable housing has to be identified. So their application will identify that, but this is confirmed through a home visit, and the level of need is determined. And often, in fact, I'll also ask Alfred and Megan to expand on this in terms of their experiences with their affiliate, but often we have applications from many families, and with the amount of work that volunteers put into actually assessing this need through home visits, it's quite a humbling experience, and at the same time it gives us an opportunity to determine which of these families is in the greatest need, and that then is passed on to the board of directors for their action and to determine who would be next in terms of serving. The ability to pay for and maintain the house is another critical component, and then the willingness to partner with Habitat for Humanity and support our objectives is key to the criteria that we follow through the application process. The mortgage that is the mortgage agreement that is contracted with the family is an important piece, in that 25 to 30% is the maximum families will pay. And I've got a little bit of, the next slide will provide a little more of a pictorial on this, but less than 1% of our mortgages have been, or essentially families have defaulted over all the years that we've been working in Canada, and it's very encouraging to see. And that has a lot to do with the amount of support and education that we also provide to families as they are entering into this partnership with Habitat for Humanity. And then our revolving fund is what is a big part of the sustainability of this organization and our model. And here's just a little bit of a picture of what that looks like. Essentially, the partners are selected, and they're investing in providing 500 hours of sweat equity in terms of the actual building of the home, and through other aspects of our work, through the restore and other things that they contribute these hours. And then once they have completed those hours, a mortgage agreement is signed, and they're going to be purchasing this home at zero interest. And then that mortgage payment is reinvested, and it's in a pool, and it's called the Fund for Humanity, or Revolving Fund for Humanity. And these mortgage payments are reinvested to build more. And in addition to that, we're able to keep the construction costs as low as possible, so that this revenue from the mortgages can actually contribute to building more Habitat homes. And so through donations and volunteer efforts, it enables us to build cost effectively and to continue and expand our work. So that gives you a little bit of insight in terms of the work of Habitat for Humanity across this country. And so I'm going to stop there and allow Megan to give a little more of an impression in terms of the work in Cobourg and surrounding areas through the community of Northumberland. And while this slide or the screens are transitioning over to Megan, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an introduction. Megan started with Habitat for Humanity in 2005 and actually became the executive director for Habitat for Humanity Northumberland in 2011. Prior to joining Habitat for Humanity, Megan was a student, and so she came right from university to work with our organization. One of the things that and areas that Megan has been motivated in terms of her work and what probably gets her up in the morning are the connections that this organization makes in the community, between homeowners and the community, between volunteers, and even between the employees of the organization, and how Habitat for Humanity in Northumberland is building so much more than homes. They are actually truly building communities. So Megan, thank you so much for being part of this, and I'd like to pass it on to you, and if you could tell us a little more about the work there and the project there on Alexandria Drive.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you, Kristen and CHRA and everyone for this opportunity. I'm excited to be talking to you about a specific project. Terry hit on a lot of the key points as to Habitat for Humanity's program, so I don't go into very much of that at all. What I wanted to do instead was, as the title of my presentation demonstrates, I wanted to provide an example of recycling a former housing development and turning it into affordable home ownership. But as I also developed this presentation, I also realized this is definitely a case study of what can happen when multiple partners come together to develop a creative solution for affordable housing. And I have to give a caveat at the beginning of this presentation. I was not involved with the organization when we took this on back in 1998. And so it's kind of weird when you're presenting a success story that was work that most of it was done before you were involved in the organization. So it's important for me to really recognize that it was the original board of directors and our original management that really took this on and made it successful. And I'm very lucky today that if anyone has any questions that I don't have the answer to, the original executive director for Habitat for Humanity Northumberland, Kathy Borwick, now works at our national office, and she is actually on the call today. So if there's a question, if you stump me, I'm quite happy that I will hopefully be able to call on her expertise and her institutional memory. So very briefly, Habitat for Humanity Northumberland, we were founded in 1998. To date, we have built 44 homes serving 46 families in our community. This is especially something we're proud of because our entire community has a population of 80,000 people. So we're split between 7 different municipalities. So it is a smaller, more rural community in Canada. We do operate a restore, as Terry mentioned, in terms of our operational funding. We opened it in 2004, and this covers the operational costs so that we have a sustainable business plan to build more homes in the community. We are also running a Renew It program in our community to actually help low-income homeowners stay in their home through microloans to do affordable housing repairs. But as I said, the main project that I want to talk to you about is Alexandria Drive. This is a project that we took on back in 1998, and we are still working on. So it's a really neat concept, and so I'm going to go through a lot of detail in it. But the basic background is it's located in the town of Cobourg. We're 100 kilometers east of Toronto, and the population of the town of Cobourg is 18,000 people. In our community of Northumberland County, this is sort of the biggest urban, if I can use that word, center in our community. In 1998, the original board was looking for a property for their first project. And one of the ones that was suggested was the decommissioned military base housing from the 1950s. And this was offered. And at that time, it was actually owned by the Ontario Development Corporation. This property was made up of 24 houses, 5 vacant lots, and green space. and I believe it was actually about 10 acres, the entire property, when the board was initially looking at it. What was really interesting as I was doing research into this is the original development for the military base. And I should say, this section of the military base was the PMQs, the officers' quarters for the military base. And when it was originally done, it was done by the Government of Canada, which meant that they were exempt from planning requirements. So it was actually only one large parcel of land. There was no lot subdivision. It was one piece of land when Habitat was looking to get involved. At that point, the houses were not being used. For several years, they had been used to support individuals facing development challenges after the military base had moved out, but then it had gone to the Ontario Development Corporation, and at this point was sitting empty. So, and I was wrong, I'm sorry. The whole property was actually 20 acres of land, I apologize. And as I said, the houses were run down, boarded up, and often vandalized. And several of the houses actually required extensive construction or demolition due to the disrepair that they had fallen into. And while it is an old picture, you'll see right there, it gives you an idea of what the street looked like when the Board of Habitat acquired it back in 1998. So, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the key to the success of this project was partnerships, and creative partnerships, and also creative affordable housing solutions. And probably one of the most substantial partnerships from the beginning and continues today through this project is between Habitat for Humanity Northumberland and the town of Cobourg. Really, the mutual success of the project and the redevelopment of the entire area was because of these two partners. And we will talk a little bit about what the area surrounding this property has turned into as a result of this project towards the end of the presentation. There was also an Affordability and Choice Today Act project that was undergone with this project, and there were 4 tasks within that. They were to determine the alternative development standards for road and lot subdivision, assess and inspect existing units to determine the work that was needed to bring them up to occupancy standards, to prepare the design guidelines and drawings and plans, and to rehabilitate the houses. And this ACT project team brought together some key partners to ensure that all of these tasks were completed. And so that included Habitat, obviously, but local lawyers, church representatives, contractors, representatives from the town. It really was a community project to see the redevelopment of this area and of this property. So in terms of acquiring the land, as I said, the key partnership between the Habitat and the town of Cobourg was throughout the project, but was especially important to actually acquire the land from the Ontario Development Corporation. HFHN, ultimately, when we acquired the land, it was split into 2. HFHN was going to get the 24 houses and the 5 vacant building lots. So that was what Habitat was going to acquire from the deal. And the town of Cobourg was going to acquire the green space, which is the additional 10 acres for recreational land. So the first step was Habitat and Cobourg negotiated with the Ontario Development Corporation to do the land survey so that we could determine the exact location of the homes and the road allowance, since, as I'll mention again, it was just one large parcel of land at the time. We were really lucky in that a local surveyor stepped up at the time and donated his services to the subdivision of the parcels, and this probably saved us about $15,000 to $20,000. And as I go through this presentation, I'm going to keep referring to some of the savings that we were able to make in doing this subdivision as a result of the different partnerships. And while sometimes they may look small individually, as you keep going, you realize it adds up very quickly and made this an affordable housing development. The second step was the town of Cobourg purchased the land parcel from the Ontario Development Corporation for $200,000, which is an average of $8,333 per house. Then, step 3, Cobourg declared half of the land surplus, the portion with the houses, and transferred title to Habitat for $200,000. So what they paid to buy it from ODC, they transferred the title for the portion of the land with the houses and the 5 vacant lots to Habitat for that same price. So Coburg then kept the undeveloped portion, and their ultimate goal was to build soccer pitches. And Coburg took back the mortgage for Habitat at no interest and reasonable payments for that $200,000, which saved, we estimate, about $35,000 for Habitat in borrowing charges by Coburg agreeing to take back the mortgage at no interest and affordable payments. It's actually very similar to the way that Habitat is able to mortgage to low-income families. Coburg recognized that we were a charity and that this saving would allow us to build more homes and help more families. So then Habitat made a down payment and regular payments until paying the mortgage off completely in 2004. So then now Habitat had the 24 houses and the 5 vacant lots, so half of the original parcel of land, and then each house was assessed at $50,000. So this is a total of $1.2 million for the 24 houses that were in existence. What we figure is if we'd had to pay fair market value and if we hadn't worked with the collaboration with the town, we would have had to pay $1.2 million. So that collaboration allowed us to save $1 million in acquiring this project. So as I mentioned before, the partnership with the town of Coburg really ensured that the cost savings for Habitat were there so that the development of the land could happen, and this keeps the cost down so that we could build affordable housing. Since the town of Coburg is a municipal government, they were able to transfer the 29 lots individually instead of in one single parcel of land, which helped to save us about $30,000 to $50,000 just in subdivision costs. The town also agreed to waive the fee associated with the development of the new subdivision, which saved us an estimated $145,000, because you have to realize we were looking at 24 houses, 5 vacant lots, many of which could be subdivided. So it was quite a big subdivision that Habitat was taking on at the time. The other really big benefit that we agreed with the town of Coburg at the beginning is that the infrastructure upgrades and road work that was required on this street would be deferred, while each Habitat homeowner contributed to a reserve fund. And each homeowner has been contributing to that fund as they move in, and that has saved Habitat $65,000, we estimate, in interest charges, since no money needed to be borrowed to pay that up front. One thing I should note is, as I say, this is still an ongoing project. Those infrastructure upgrades and road work are actually just in the process of being scheduled for next year. So that work has not been done yet, but Habitat has been able to pay the through collecting from the homeowners. Habitat has been able to pay the entire amount that was estimated with the town, which was $225,000 to cover those. And so now that commitment is also done, and it's now up to the town to complete the work. I really, really, really want to stress before I go to the next stage that this whole the town was such a key partner in this, but also what we also realized, and I think the town realized at the time, was this was also a huge opportunity for them to be a partner and to help Habitat save money, but also be able to provide the affordable housing for their residents that without having to take it on themselves. So we really felt like this and feel this is a mutual partnership that we have continued to maintain over the years, and have actually been able to set up with other municipalities within our county. Habitat planned to renovate the homes at a few at a time and then sell them to the Habitat partner family. So this was meant to be a long-term project. And then for sustainability, Habitat also planned to rent the houses that were not renovated right away at below market affordable rent to be able to meet a little bit of a different need, but also to ensure that there's some income there as well. And then the plan was for the 5 vacant lots to be used to build new homes. And so the renting did happen, and actually the 5 vacant lots, we only have 1 left to build on. So we have been using those to build new homes. The original plan was to start in 1998 and complete the Beacon Homes development by 2005. Beacon Homes development was the original name of the subdivision. Over the years, that sort of has dropped away, and we've sort of stuck to the street name. Seems to be how people in the community recognize it the most. But the original plan was to be done by 2005. So once Habitat acquired the land, then Habitat began to build up all the public support that was needed to pull off or to successfully complete this project. So this included engaging local churches to help clean the units because they'd been in disrepair and they had been empty for a while when we acquired them. So a lot of work had to be done right there. To develop the volunteer base needed to do the renovations. At this time, when the board of directors took this project on, there were no staff for Habitat for Humanity. It was an entirely volunteer-driven organization. We needed to select local families to own the homes, and then we also needed to raise the money in the community so that we could cover the costs to renovate the homes. So the renovations. One of the huge focuses of the renovations was to improve the house overall, but with a special emphasis placed on the energy efficiency so that families could afford to stay in the home for the long term. So within the inside, we did new and more sufficient insulation. Within the outside, we did rigid board insulation, new wrap, sheathing, and siding. We really focused on a strong building envelope so that those homes could be operated affordably for low-income families. New windows and doors were put in, and we estimate that we were able to reduce the operational cost of the home by 50% just through the renovations that we were able to do. So with any key project, it is important to recognize some of the challenges. So 2 slides ago, I mentioned that our ultimate goal was to finish the project originally in 2005. We hit some delays, but there's really good reasons for those. The final renovation project was completed in 2011, so not 2005, which was due to many reasons, but one of the key ones was about probably 6 or 7 years into the project, there was a recognition that we were only serving families within the town of Cobourg, and that, as I mentioned, is only 18,000 people. So we had 6 other communities where there was a need that needed to be served. So the affiliate agreed to start to diversify and to move outside into the other parts of the county while continuing to serve families in Cobourg. So that's part of the reason why the project, the completion date got moved. Some of the houses needed to meet family needs, including accessibility. So some of those requirements did delay some of our projects so that we could make sure the house that we were building was the most suitable for a family. At least one of the units that was renovated is fully accessible, was renovated to be fully accessible, and 2 of the units that we built are also fully accessible due to the needs of the family. This project was also a huge demand on Habitat's volunteer workforce, and over the years as our organization has grown in the community and as we acquired staff and a restore and different things, we've been able to build that volunteer workforce, but we've also built some of the staff support to be able to come to the completion or the almost completion of this project. Another challenge that we faced with it was the stigma. The military base in the community was also turned into the, not the officers' quarters, but the rest of it was turned into, a lot of it was turned into social housing or co-op housing or not-for-profit housing. And the challenge that we found in our community is, as a result of having so much low-income housing in one area, a huge stigma developed within our community. And the concern that or the challenge that we faced with Alexandria Drive was because it was so close to so much of the social housing, there was still a stigma for the families that lived on this street, and there was not an understanding that it was home ownership. And so over the years, the families have felt that has been a challenge. We've been working on that with the community through education, but we've also found that as some of those units, the original Habitat families, have sold and moved on, the diversification of income on that street has also helped to reduce some of that stigma within the community. Habitat's long-term role, one byproduct is that with all Habitat families in one area, this has helped to create a bit of an expectation that Habitat's involved in as more than just a mortgage company. This also has to do with the fact that the project is still ongoing, so there's a long presence of Habitat on the street. So it's not necessarily a negative, but it has created a bit of a challenge that we've had to deal with. So what are the results of this incredible project? You will get to see that original picture again in a second, but in the end, 24 houses and 5 vacant lots was turned into 34 safe, decent, and affordable homes, which means 34 families had a roof, an affordable roof over their head because of this project. That is also with 3 more houses still to be completed, because as I said, we still have 1 vacant lot that can actually accommodate a multi-unit triplex. So the ability to turn 24 houses and 5 vacant lots into 34, hopefully eventually 37 houses is what the result of this project is. But it's done so much more than that. It's also rejuvenated an entire neighborhood. This 15-plus year project has changed an entire section of the town of Cobourg. We have been able to engage partners for the renovation of the houses that include colleges, local business, churches, Rotary clubs, government, and volunteers from all across Canada. As I mentioned, years ago, this section of town was one that people didn't often go to. There was such a stigma with it. So many people have come through and learned so much more about affordable home ownership and the needs of the community as a result of getting involved in this project. I also mentioned that the town took over the recreational 10 acres. Well, in 1998, this area of town included 2 schools, a daycare, an industrial park, the old abandoned PMQs, and the social housing. Today, as a result of this project and what the town was able to acquire, there are soccer fields, baseball diamonds, a large community center, the biggest in our area, and at the heart of all of this is this neighborhood built on the principle of affordable home ownership. We truly think that the pride that our families take in their homes and has helped to transition an entire section of town, and we're very proud of that. And I have some pictures here to close my presentation that I want to show you. Here's an example of one house before it was renovated and after. Here's, oh, I forgot to include the after picture, sorry. So I'll move to the next one. So we come back to that original picture of what the street looked like before, and we're very proud to demonstrate a picture of after, of this is what it looks like with our homeowners living on the street. So that is the end of my presentation, and I know we'll get to questions later, so I'll turn it back over to Terry.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks very much for the presentation and also for demonstrating some of the transformation of communities in Northumberland County and the work that's going on there. As I expect there's going to be questions or comments that are going to come from Megan later on, and so we'll take those questions at the end of Alfred's presentation. But as an introduction, as his screen comes up, I'd like to just mention a few things. Alfred also started working with Habitat for Humanity in 2005. Alfred graduated with a master's in physical education. He was a teacher. He's also been a civil servant for many years with the government of Alberta in the area of recreation and active living programs. And he spent over 30 years, or he has over 30 years experience in fund development with both Fairview College and Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. Alfred comes to Habitat for Humanity with a vast amount of experience and is one of our, like Megan, he's also one of our driving forces in this organization and provides a very strong support for many of our affiliates across the country. Alfred, what really drives Alfred is serving families and providing safe and decent, affordable home ownership within the province of Alberta and specifically in Edmonton area. So, Alfred, I'd like to pass it over to you, and thank you again for being part of this great presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Terry, and also thank you, Kristen and CHRA, for the opportunity. Kristen, are my slides up on the screen?
Yeah, yes, they are, Terry. You just need to go full screen now. Show the show from beginning so we can see one slide at a time. Perfect.
Okay. I apologize for that, everybody. And so, first of all, I am going to talk a little bit. I really appreciated Megan's detailed presentation on this, and I guess I'm going to be talking about a wonderful partnership we have here at Habitat Edmonton with Métis Capital Housing Corporation. But I do want to look at it maybe more from rather than a detailed perspective, but from sort of a an overview perspective, because we really think that renovating existing homes is the way to go, and we really believe that there's all types of, using Megan's example, all types of places where existing homes that belong to, whether it's either the RCMP or some other government agency or some housing corporation, can actually be transformed into a Habitat house, and in a very successful way, both for the families that go into those homes, but also for the community where we build them in. Just want to capitalize a little bit on the vision and mission of Habitat for Humanity. In Edmonton, of course, we have the exact same vision and mission as Habitat for Humanity Canada. But I just want to expand a little bit about that. The mission, if you look at it, has got nothing to do with building houses. So clearly, Habitat for Humanity, especially I think here in Edmonton, is not about building homes, but it's about serving families. And when we build a house, it's only a conduit, it's only a way that we can help families. The other part of that mission that says mobilizing volunteers and community partners is absolutely essential to what we do. And I'm so proud to say this and get people's head to think about this. And, last year in 2014, our organization put through 14,000, not 1,400, but 14,000 volunteer shifts in the spirit of neighbors helping neighbors to help build our families a home. And so it is very, very, very much of what we do. The need for affordable housing, and I think this is something that everybody on this call knows and understands, but I just want to emphasize that Habitat Edmonton is not only building in urban Edmonton, but we're also involved in 20 other rural, mid-sized, small-sized communities. And the need for affordable housing is in each and every one of them. And there's no question that this is what drives us. And, to put it in simple terms, we simply have thousands and thousands of families in northern Alberta that still pay 50, 60, 70% of their income goes to their shelter. And, we feel that we are one of the solutions of helping reduce that in a very, very significant way. As our families, as Terry said, there's the Boston Consulting Group did the study about how absolutely home ownership affects families' self-esteem, their stability, their ability to succeed in their community. It happens almost immediately, and we at Habitat see it. But I just like to emphasize that even the results that Terry showed on the screen are only for one generation. But when we move a family out of a subsidized rental unit or a social housing unit, and we move them into home ownership, the pride and dignity and the success that happens to that family becomes multi-generational. And we haven't done the figures yet on that, because when we move one set of kids out of that cycle of poverty, we're moving generation after generation after generation out of the cycle of poverty. So every time we can renovate a home, every time we can build a home and change that for a family, it isn't just for that one family, it's for the generations that follow. The other thing, I think a lot of people, obviously I'd like to give greetings to my colleagues from Habitat that are on this call, and hopefully they can help me answer some questions afterwards. But I think a lot of people really don't understand the wonderful financial model that Habitat for Humanity has. Allowing families to pay only 25% of their gross income for their shelter allows them 75% for the disposable income. That in itself is remarkable because that changes that horrible cycle that they're in where every month they have to decide, you know, do I pay my rent or do I get groceries or clothes or allow my kid to go to the dentist? So right away, that is taken away. So there's an instant financial benefit for each of our families. But on top of that, that 25% is equity. So just imagine all the apartments in all of your communities, all of the subsidized rental units out there in Canada. If we could transform that monthly rent payment that they have into a savings account for those families, imagine how wonderful that would be for those families. But also, because we reinvest that money to build yet the next home, imagine how wonderful that would be in no matter how big or small a community that you live in. So the financial model of Habitat for Humanity is, I find it just absolutely amazing, and it is one of the ways that we can create a sustainable form of housing across this country for affordable housing. Terry just touched on this a little bit about, you know, one of the things that we absolutely insist on at Habitat for Humanity is that we say it's a hand up, not a handout, and we insist that our families give us 500 hours of sweat equity. And the thing I'd just like to note about this is that at the beginning, when we sign our families on, sweat equity is seen as a huge obligation. But it's amazing how by the time they're halfway through or partway through, that they don't see it as an obligation anymore. They see it as an opportunity, just because they get to touch and work with the many volunteers and community partners that we have when they do their sweat equity. I do, and this Fund for Humanity, Terry talked about it a little bit, but I'm just going to just elaborate on it just a little bit because I really do think that creating this mortgage pool from each family. So every time we build a home for a family, we sell to the family 25% of their income at 0% interest. That money comes back to us so that we can help another family, and so on and so on and so on. And it really is a sustainable way to create a pool of money for affordable housing. And the demonstration of that, I guess, works best when we do renovations, because the investment in the renovation program is not nearly as high as the investment in building a new house. And so getting to the topic today about our Aboriginal builds here at Habitat for Humanity, we have a wonderful partnership with Métis Capital Housing Corporation. And just to give a bit of a history on that, the association came to Habitat and said, you know, Alfred, you have an army of volunteers working for you. We have these homes. They're in desperate need of repair. Is there any way that we could use your thousands of volunteers to help us renovate these homes and actually lower the costs for us so that we can help more families? Of course, you know, it's very interesting when you get a request like that, because it's true, we do have thousands of volunteers, but they're Habitat volunteers. And so I said, you know what, unless it's a Habitat home, we really can't do that. But would you be interested in giving the house to us? And at first, I think the Métis organization, it took them a while to figure out that it could be a win-win scenario both for them and for us. The truth is, the first day she walked out of my office because she was asking for my help, and I in turn asked her to give me the house. But we developed a wonderful relationship where every year we would renovate 5 homes for as many years as we could possibly do that. I also want to quickly mention, and on this slide it shows the Métis settlements, and so I'm not going to talk long about this, but Habitat for Humanity Edmonton and the Alberta government and the Métis General Council of Alberta have come up with an agreement that over the next 7 years we will build 100 homes on 8 different Métis settlements in Alberta. So far we have 12 built already, and we have 12 under construction as we speak. This is bringing home ownership to Métis settlements, which are very, very, very similar to First Nation reserves. In fact, the Métis, the Alberta government took the Indian Act from the Canadian government, transformed it into a provincial government act, but we really feel that this model also works on either reserve or settlement, and we're actively doing that right now. The partnership agreement we have with the Métis Capital Housing Organization, and just so everyone understands, this is a typical housing organization that provides subsidized rent to citizens, and all of your communities basically have a similar corporation in them. The agreement was simple. They would give us, because we weren't interested in the land, and this may differ if it's not a Métis, land, and the Métis organization just could not give us the land because it was sacred. And we said we didn't really need the land, we just needed the house. But in essence, the house is given to us for $1. We assess the house, and then we renovate it and sell it to a family. What this happens for this family, and I'm not going to go over the numbers on the slide there, but you can do that. But it's a definite win for these families, because it's the same families that were paying rent to Métis Capital Housing. So here you have a family that they were paying rent every month, year after year after year, but they were never getting out of the cycle of poverty, because none of that money that they were giving every month would ever come back to them. Take the same house, same family, and we've just turned that whole concept on its head, because that monthly payment that they were giving to Métis Capital Housing, now they're giving it to their children. And so every month they're creating savings for their children's future. So it absolutely is a win for the families. At the same time, it's a win for Habitat for Humanity Edmonton. As I said at the beginning, our vision and mission is to serve families. And here we were serving families. Our renovation projects were always less than half of what it would cost to build a new home. And so we were able to help a family for a quarter or half the amount of helping a family by building them a new home. And so for Habitat for Humanity Edmonton, it truly is a win, and we can't wait to get building our next renovation programs. And I think that the model would work for the other housing authorities that are in Edmonton and other communities. And so we at Habitat Edmonton are looking at this not just for Métis families, but hopefully that we're going to be doing renovation programs for other housing authorities in Northern Alberta. Finally, it's I've got these slides backwards here as I have them written down here, but it's also a huge win for the Métis Capital Métis Housing Association, because each of those homes that required that renovation was in essence a liability to the association. And now, because we take that money and we reinvest it in another renovation program, they no longer have to pay for the maintenance of that house, they don't have to pay for the repair of that house, and they don't have to pay for the management of that house. So those liabilities are taken away and replaced by the asset of us reinvesting that mortgage money in another renovation. And so again, I apologize for the order of the slides, but so we feel strongly that it's a win for the association, it's a win for Habitat for Humanity, and most importantly, it's a win for our families. Unfortunately, in 2015, we're in a bit of a hiatus, we're in a stop. There was a new political structure put in place at Métis Capital Housing. They had a new board and they hired new staff. And in the interim, we aren't doing any renovations in 2015, but we are going to be starting, very hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, we will start again in 2016 with 5 new renovations with this one organization, and 5 every year, year after year. That's quickly my presentation, but I am hoping that you ask as many questions as you possibly can.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Alfred. Really appreciate this example of the great work that's going on there in Edmonton and just outside of Edmonton area. These are 2 great examples of the transformational work that Habitat for Humanity is doing across the country, and there's many more affiliates that are doing great work in this country as far as our organization is concerned. I suspect that there are a number of representatives from our affiliates on this call today, which is great, and potentially some people who can expand on or respond to things that Alfred identified there. Before we go into any questions, I just wanted to take this opportunity then to mention the fact that, as Alfred has indicated, there may be some properties that are at point or could be at some point in time a liability to an organization, and this is what Habitat for Humanity is very interested in helping and partnering with. So ultimately, we recognize that with the end of operating agreements in this country, that there are going to be some challenges that some social housing providers are going to be facing, and we would like to be able to be in discussion as an organization at the local level as far as how we could be a partner and assist in finding solutions to those situations. These presentations today are just 2 examples of what Habitat for Humanity has done, but we're very interested in being innovative, in coming up with solutions at the same time conscious of our limited resources. And so we'd like to be in discussions with local housing organizations and any other partners so that we can continue to expand the work. We recognize the need. It continues to grow, and we as an organization need to do more, and we want to do more. So this is our opportunity to present to those on the call and to expand on this across and get the message out, essentially, that Habitat for Humanity wants to work with you, and so we look forward to opportunities. So Kristen, at this stage, I'd like to turn it back to you. There's some contact information there up on the screen in terms of the 3 of us that have been speaking. And at the same time, if there are any questions, we'd like to be able to respond to those. So I'll pass it back to you, Kristen.
Thank you very much, Terry, and thank you to Megan and Alfred for your presentations. And as Terry indicated, we do have time for questions. We have about another full 15 minutes or so left, and we have all 3 of our presenters on the line. I see some of you are beginning to use the question dialog box, and I see some questions coming in, so please feel free to continue typing those in. If you would like a question directed to one speaker in particular, please indicate that speaker's name, or else we can address your question to all 3 of our presenters and see who can give us a great answer. So as I said again, you can use the dialog box, and you can also raise your hand, the hand icon on your control panel, and I can call on you, unmute your line, and you can ask your question directly. So I think we will begin now taking a few questions. We have a question here from Gail, who's from Veterans Emergency Transition Services, who asks, asks if any of you ever help a family and the unit is only one person who needs an apartment, and that they might own it as a part of a co-op, because many veterans don't have a family as defined. So the question is in relation to single individuals, is there any kind of accommodation that you guys provide for them, if I'm understanding the question correctly? Megan, you're unmuted, and Alfred and Terry, you're all unmuted, so you may all jump in as you please to answer some of these questions.
It's Alfred. First of all, our affiliate has decided that our priority is to help families, but we have jumped outside that box. So any affiliate can prioritize who they build their homes for. We have a partnership in Stony Plain, Alberta, where we put seniors to a 12-plex where 4 of the units are for seniors. And those seniors could be singles, and so it is possible. But our priority is to serve families and children.
And I'll just jump in too, because Alfred has been entirely correct in saying that's up to every affiliate too. That is some of the flexibility we have. And what I really like about that is that also allows us to serve our population needs. We live here in Northumberland County, 34% of our population is seniors. So we are actually, we do work, we are actively working with individuals and seniors, and even doing currently in the middle of an age-friendly study to be able to recognize how we could better house seniors. So it really does depend on the affiliate, but we have done that as well.
Thank you. Another question open to you all. How do you income test to ensure that the people are still paying between 25 and 30% of their income?
Absolutely. Every year Revenue Canada contacts us. We evaluate their mortgage payments to us on a yearly basis as Revenue Canada gives us their income.
I think that's consistent across. It's consistent policy of our organization across Canada. So all of our affiliates do income verifications on an annual basis, I believe.
Yep, and it is actually, some of us, like for us, it's actually built right into their mortgage that it is a requirement of their mortgage to do so.
Great. We have a question here from Leo of the Prince George Métis Housing Society, and he says that 4 years ago he approached his local HFH in Prince George about the Edmonton example to do a similar a partnership build in Prince George, but at that period of time the partnership did not go through. So over the past 3 years, the affiliate has closed down in that region. So his comment is they are interested in this concept of combining their land trust concept in Prince George with some of what you're speaking about today. So there's definitely interest there from Leo, and if anyone wants to comment on that.
Well, I'll just indicate thank you also for that comment and that opportunity as far as Prince George. And so I'll identify myself as, if there are some suggestions, some contact information in terms of ongoing work that Habitat for Humanity could do in the community of Prince George or other communities where Habitat may not currently be active, feel free to send that to me. I'll pass it on to my colleagues who would be more involved in that, and we'll explore the viability of some of these opportunities and communicate back. And so we'd definitely like to continue to be open to that, for sure.
Thanks, Terry.
So we have to add to that, Terry, if the folks in Prince George, if I can help in any way to explain the program or to get Aaron from Métis Capital Housing to explain, I'm sure that we would just love to help. We can help Prince George. We absolutely would.
Fantastic, great. So we have Alfred and Terry's contact information up on the screen there, and as they said, they're really open to getting any feedback or follow up from people on the call today if they want to reach out. So that's fantastic. We have some more questions coming in. So the next one is, can you please comment on how building on leased land impacts home ownership for the family? What happens at the end of a lease term?
Well, you know, we also build condo developments, and you know, if you live in a condo, you own the condo, but you don't own the land. And so the ownership of the land to me is just a moot point. The land is just dirt, and so it really makes no difference. We build the house, we renovate the house, the family has a mortgage to the house, but you know, there's a caveat on their mortgage that the land is owned by the Métis Capital Housing. It really makes no difference in my mind whatsoever.
Okay, another question here. Have any of you looked at purchasing a federal housing complex out of receivership and giving the residents an opportunity to become partner families?
That's an interesting question. Alfred, has that ever crossed your plate to this point?
Well, we would jump at it if we could.
Yeah, it hasn't crossed ours either yet.
No, I don't. I'm not aware of any that has come across, but it definitely would be of interest to discuss further and explore for sure.
Again, I just maybe repeat what I said a little bit, but you know, the families that we serve at Habitat for Humanity are usually identical to the families that live in these housing units. And so if we could transform their monthly payments into a savings account both for the families and for the community with the same payments, I think that's a wonderful thing for all of us across the country to think about.
Fantastic. Okay, another question here. Do you have any specific examples of a co-op housing on which EOA is expired and actually has an agreement with Habitat to convene rental units to ownership in Toronto?
Actually, I don't know if there are any representatives from our Greater Toronto Area affiliate on the call. I'm not aware of any discussions that have taken place to date. Cooperatives is a little bit of a different animal, I guess, in that we wouldn't, to my knowledge, wouldn't be able to necessarily transfer units within a co-op to home ownership. It would have to be the entire condo community or co-op community that would have to be first converted to a condominium before we could actually transition to that. But it's an area that we haven't really investigated in depth to explore innovative opportunities, but I believe it definitely has to be part of the consideration going forward.
Great. We have a time.
If somebody wants to extend their, they could pass on their email to me, and I could communicate after this call with them on that further after I consult with our Greater Toronto Area affiliate.
Thanks, Terry. We have time for a couple more questions if people have a few more. We have one more coming in saying, asking if the economy and the housing market at large has affected Habitat for Humanity and the building and pricing of your homes over the years recently.
I'm not sure I know the question, but we have to sell our homes at market value. No matter how inexpensive or expensive we build them, because of CRA rules, you can't give somebody anything, and Canada Revenue Agency would grab it. And so anything that we would try to sell a family home under market value would be seen as a taxable benefit. So all of our homes have to be sold at market value. And so to me, it's really quite simple. The market goes up and the market goes down. But the way our mortgage works in Edmonton is that they get back their principal that they give regardless. And so our mortgage is a recovery of their principal monthly payments. And so if the market goes up, then we would renovate that house and sell it to the next family at that higher rate, because our mortgage says that we have to buy them back. And so every Habitat home that's built in northern Alberta, we buy them all back, and they will always be owned by a Habitat for Humanity family. But so the market value is sort of irrelevant. It goes up and it goes down because their payment is 25% of their income. It isn't associated to the value of the house, but it's to their income. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Yeah.
Megan, maybe you want to also add to that too.
Well, yeah, and I was actually going to ask, Kristen, could you please just repeat the question?
The question was asking if the market or the economy more at large in terms of housing prices has really affected the price of building new homes or the mortgage payments from Habitat for Humanity.
The one thing I would say, and especially, I mean, it's not as big a deal here for us here in Cobourg, but living so close to Toronto and then some of our bigger urban markets as well, we have recognized that some of the inflation of housing prices has almost written affordable home ownership out, or has required us to really start to think creatively about affordable home ownership. So we're not there yet here in our affiliate, but we are keeping an eye on it, because that is a concern, is if housing prices go so high, at what point can a low-income family, even if they're not paying interest, can they not afford the house? So it is something we definitely need to be concerned about. Terry, you might be able to speak more from a Canadian perspective, but that's my thought.
Mm-hmm. And to the first part of the question, yes, the cost of building and obviously the cost for both materials and land has continued to rise. And so the cost of Habitat for Humanity in terms of building has gone up. And so therefore, with our limited resources, it does also limit the amount of families that we can serve as these costs rise. But we're continuing to look at ways to be innovative and cost conscious in terms of construction, but at the same time maintain high quality of construction. Because we are selling these homes to families, we want to make sure it's a high quality home and energy efficient, as Megan introduced in her presentation, the cost of operating for the family. So ultimately, yes, these costs are going up. As Alfred mentioned, the fact that the mortgage payments are limited to their income and the percentage of their income, so therefore the cost to the family doesn't necessarily change. The amortization over the number of years does change as far as the mortgage overall. But again, it speaks back to the opportunity here and the intent behind part of this conversation today, and that was if we can look at the opportunity to retrofit and rehabilitate existing units as a complement to what we're currently doing, this will give us opportunity to serve more families.
I couldn't agree more, Terry. So, the renovation of existing apartments or housing units, whatever you want to call them, or homes is absolutely a way to reduce our costs. But I do want to just point out to anyone that's serving any community out there that the ultimate cost to building an apartment or to building a Habitat unit should be exactly the same, or at very best, a Habitat home should be less because we use volunteers to build it. It takes just as many 2x4s and just as many glass panes to build a Habitat house as it does any other apartment. And if the people that we're serving are the same, we need to look at this and say, well, wait a minute here. If we're going to build 24 units or 12 units of apartments and have subsidized rent in them, what if we would change that concept and say we're going to put home ownership in there and serve the same families that we do, and reduce the cost of construction because we're using volunteer labor and gifts in kind that we get from basically all of North America. And so if affordable housing is an issue in our communities, I believe that Habitat for Humanity is an absolute one of the solutions that we need to look at.
Well, thanks, Alfred and Megan, for this. Kristen, I suspect that we're wrapping up. Are there any other questions that are there?
Can we take one or two more questions? I know some people might want to leave, but would that be okay?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Fine by me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll stay on just for a few more minutes, take two more questions, and then we'll wrap up. So we have someone asking, have any affiliates implemented any form of deferred home ownership program similar to rent to own?
Well, our mortgage model is basically, if you wanted to call it rent to own, you could. I mean, they're paying every month, and at the end of the day, they get all the money back that they gave us. So if you called it rent, I don't know why you'd want to call it rent, because if they fix their own toilet, they own it. And if they, the other thing that unfortunately, rent to own you're still a renter. We found that as soon as people have that, they get their pride and dignity by calling it home ownership. They own their house, just like everybody else, especially people that have been in social housing for a number of years. It's theirs, and there's a real sense of pride and dignity that comes with that, and a sense of stability that says, I will decide if I have to move, not somebody else. And so, to me, the rent to own doesn't make any sense. It's own. We own it, and you pay your mortgage, and when you want to sell it, we will buy it back from you.
I'll jump in here, and some other examples of what Habitat for Humanity has been doing, mainly in Eastern Canada for that matter. We have partnered with the federal government in terms of surplus federal real properties for homelessness association, or initiative, sorry, and that is, we call it SURFI is essentially the acronym, but ultimately it's an opportunity to acquire properties that have become surplus, and they are available to organizations like Habitat for Humanity to retrofit, and there is a 15-year control period on the properties, and so we're not able to transfer the title for the property to the homeowner until the 15-year control period is ended, but we essentially set the affiliates that have acquired these units have partnered with families and have established an agreement with the families to act as homeowners. Their mortgage payments or their payments will go towards the eventual ownership of the property. So it could be referred to as a deferred home ownership or rent-to-own approach. But they're looking at these properties as their home. So those are examples to date, and we're continuing to look at innovative ways that we can serve more families under models similar to that.
I'd just like to add to what Terry is saying. So, the whole idea is to help families. I mean, the old concept of where we get a bunch of volunteers together to build a new home for a family is just one of the many ways. Our purpose is to help families, and so if we can help families, whatever it takes, that's what our mission is, right?
Mm-hmm. So just to clarify some of what both Alfred and Terry were just speaking to, does the asset stay within the community? Therefore, it cannot be sold by the homeowner on the open market, so it's sold back to Habitat for Humanity. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yeah.
In those models, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, under those models, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
we have over 400 families that we've helped, and so we are reinvesting back into the greater Edmonton area now over $3 million a year from the mortgages that we get from the families that we help. So, one family helps the next family, helps the next family. And that's just a wonderful way to do it. And by the end of this year, that Fund for Humanity will be that much greater again, and so we will have less need to help from corporations, from government, from municipalities, because eventually it'll become sustainable. And it creates a pool for affordable housing every time we build a Habitat home. Mm-hmm. So it's a wonderful model.
I'll add, Kristen, one last point that we are a federation, and so every one of our affiliates is independently incorporated, and so we have a number of different types of mortgage models being used, and at the same time, our definite focus is around affordable home ownership, but we're also very interested in our mandate is to serve as many families as possible, and so we're looking at different tools to be able to actually do that.
Great. One last question just to finish off. Does the family selection process vary between the new builds that some of you have spoken about and the renovations as the two different programs spoken about here today? Does the family selection process vary in those two situations?
Absolutely not.
No.
Yeah.
So except, I guess with the exception that for the Métis homes, our selection tool came from Métis families. Because they gave us the house, it was specifically done within the Métis community. And so each of the families that were living, and there are thousands of them that were living in the rental situation, they were the only ones that could apply. But normally, whether it's a renovation or whether it's a new home, whether the process is exactly the same.
Great. Well, thank you. Well, we will wrap up now, and thank you to our presenters, to Terry, Megan, and Alfred, and thank you to all our participants today. We're aware we went a little bit over, so thanks for sticking around if you did for the last few questions. Did anyone have any last words is what I wanted to ask, in fact, before we did officially sign off. Terry or Megan or Alfred?
No, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Terry, you want to close it off?
Yeah, I'll gladly just thank on behalf of everyone within our organization, thank CRHRA for the opportunity, and as listed on the screen still, that we are open to any communication as far as questions or further comments, and I would gladly, if I can't necessarily speak to it, I'll definitely consult with colleagues so that we can respond as quickly as possible. But again, thank you very much, Kristen, for this opportunity, and look forward to being a stronger member within the affordable housing sector across this country as we continue to pursue innovative ways, including the opportunity to acquire social housing units through the end of operating agreements.
Well, that is an ideal point to end on. So thank you, Terry. And thanks from everyone here at CHRA. Just before we conclude, we have two more fall webinars coming up. On November 12th, we'll be featuring a pan-Canadian pilot project called A Path to Home that's rolled out in Edmonton, Toronto, and Fredericton, and it supports housing needs for newcomers. And on December 8th, join us in conversation with two really unique and creative social innovation agencies in Vancouver and Montreal who are working to support homeless populations. So you can find out more about our upcoming webinars on our website at chra-achru.ca, and you can follow the links under our work to find out more. So take care. Thank you all for participating, and bye for now. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.